Hello, my name is Geraghty, and I am the Executive Director of Rehumanize International. We are a secular, nonpartisan organization dedicated to creating a culture of peace and life. Today, we're going to be talking about abortion. You may have been told that no one really knows when life begins, but that's not entirely true. The reality is, the scientific community is at a consensus. At the moment of sperm-egg fusion during the process of fertilization, what is produced is a genetically distinct, whole, living organism. Because the product of a same-species reproduction is always a differentiated member of that same species, in human reproduction, what is produced at fertilization is a genetically distinct, whole, living human organism, or a human being. In other words, life begins at conception. Uninterrupted, this human organism will grow from a zygote to an embryo, to a fetus, to an infant, to a toddler, to a child, to an adolescent, to a teenager, to an adult, and to an elder. At no point in our development do we become human. We are human beings from the very moment we begin to exist. But don't just take my word for it. Here are some various quotes from medical school textbooks that demonstrate the scientific community's consensus on when a human life begins. In The Developing Human, Clinically Oriented Embryology, published in 2016, human development begins at fertilization when a sperm fuses with an oocyte to form a single cell, the zygote. This highly specialized totipotent cell, capable of giving rise to any cell type, marks the beginning of each of us as a unique individual. In Bradley M. Patton's Human Embryology, 3rd edition, it is the penetration of the ovum by a spermatozoan and the resultant mingling of the nuclear material each brings to the union that constitutes the culmination of the process of fertilization and marks the initiation of the life of a new individual. In Human Embryology and Teratology, although life is a continuous process, fertilization is a critical landmark because, under ordinary circumstances, a new, genetically distinct human organism is formed when the chromosomes of the male and female pronuclei blend in the oocyte. And from Langman's Medical Embryology, the development of human begins with fertilization, a process by which the spermatozoan from the male and the oocyte from the female unite to give rise to a new organism, the zygote. I could go on and on. Even Dr. Willie Parker, who performs abortions, has said this.
My first concession was to your first two syllogisms, that abortion kills a human being. It is the intentional disruption of a pregnancy that kills human beings.
Just one final question. How many innocent human beings have you intentionally killed in your life's work?
I don't know. I don't measure
You've lost
my work.
count.
I don't.
You've lost count.
If it's a million.
10,000?
20,000.
20,000?
What's the difference?
What's the difference
Yes, what's the
between
difference?
20,000 and 30,000?
Yeah, no.
10,000 dead human beings. That's the difference.
Okay.
Let's break down the most common methods of abortion. RU486, or Mifeprex, the abortion pill. These pills are used to deplete the hormones needed to maintain the pregnant person's uterine lining and placenta, which are the nutrition and shelter for the tiny unborn child. It is used in conjunction with Cytotec, or misoprostol, which causes strong contractions and the expulsion and fatal starvation of the child. Vacuum aspiration, a procedure used in the first trimester, wherein the abortionist inserts a hollow tube into the dilated cervix. Using a vacuum with 27 times the power of a typical household vacuum, the tiny human is torn into pieces, with their body parts going through a hose into a bottle. D&E, or dilation and extraction. Used generally in second trimester abortion, the cervix is first dilated substantially. The abortionist inserts narrow, forceps-like pliers into the uterus to grasp an arm or leg, and, with a twisting motion, tears the limb from the child's body. The spine is snapped and the skull is crushed. After the procedure, body parts are counted to ensure nothing of the child has been left in the uterus. Induction abortion. For this procedure, the abortionist will typically inject digoxin or potassium chloride into the child's body to cause a heart attack. Labor is induced to deliver an already dead baby. Ultimately, all versions of elective abortions, when successful, result in the intentional death of a child. Abortion providers all over the world have gone on record to say that abortion is killing, it is harm, and it ends the life of a living human being.
Am I killing? Yes, I am. I know that.
It's a jarring admission from anyone, especially from a doctor, and perhaps even more so from this doctor.
The term failed abortion generally only applies in cases where a child doesn't die as a result of the procedure. This isn't just hypothetical. Pause for a moment. Try to just imagine yourself defenseless. No one can hear your cries, and suddenly the entire space is filled with a poisonous salt water. You swim in that saline solution for 4 days, the water burning your lungs as you attempt to inhale. This is what happened to Melissa Ohden in 1977. Her mother went in for an abortion at 8 months pregnant, and the doctors attempted to provide a saline abortion. They thought it was successful, until a nurse heard the cries from the medical waste bin. Melissa was rushed to the hospital, where she was admitted to the NICU and ultimately survived and thrived. Today, she is alive and well with a beautiful family. However, most children targeted by abortion are not that lucky. In the United States alone, over 850,000 abortions are committed every year. And still, the abortion debate rages on. In this debate, the question of when does life begin is often posed. But as we have gone over, the answer to that question is clear. Life begins at fertilization, or conception. Rather, the question we should be asking is, which human beings deserve human rights? This gets at the philosophical concept of personhood, which generally defines the individuals who we believe are deserving of moral consideration. There have been a variety of philosophical definitions of personhood over the centuries. Modern pro-choice ideology seeks to exclude certain human beings from personhood based on factors such as size, ability level, or level of dependence. Pro-life people, on the other hand, argue that we should expand personhood and eliminate the arbitrary distinctions, granting personhood, moral consideration, and human rights to all human beings, born and unborn. This expansion leads to a definition of personhood that is simply, a person is a living human being. While I do support this definition, I have some reservations about working entirely within this framework, and I'd like to suggest an alternative. I contend that this very concept of personhood is an illegitimate social and legal construct that, throughout history, has been used almost exclusively to discriminate against whole classes of human beings. Personhood should not be amended, it should be abolished. I believe in human rights, not person rights, because the definition of who can or can't be a person is ultimately a political and ideological debate that ignores basic scientific facts. If there could ever be a category of living human non-persons, then personhood is either a useless signifier at best or dangerous and deadly at worst. If we are going to claim to be supporters of human rights, we should apply them to all humans, regardless of age, size, level of ability, level of dependence, or anything else. Even still, there are some people who may claim that, sure, the unborn are persons or beings with some worth, However, they still defend the so-called right to abortion with the mantra, "My body, my choice." But think about it for a second. What does that actually mean? We know that unborn children are not actually a part of the pregnant person's body. They are genetically distinct, whole, living human beings. What people usually mean when they say this is that they believe that the mother's right to bodily autonomy trumps the child's right to life. Often, this stems from the belief that no one should be required to perform extraordinary care in order to save the life of another person. The major flaw in this line of thinking is that it assumes that abortion is similar to denying care or letting someone die. However, given that elective abortion always involves the intentional starving, poisoning, or dismembering of a living human being, it is not accurate to compare it to a mere refusal of care. It is always a deliberate act of violence. If you, for example, refuse to donate a kidney, someone might die, but it's not your refusal that ultimately kills them. They die from whatever illness or injury they had. If, however, someone requested that you donate a kidney to them, and you responded by injecting them with potassium chloride and causing a heart attack, that would be intentional killing. It is not a violation of bodily autonomy to prohibit the killing of human beings, especially the killing of defenseless children. There is no right to commit violence. At Rehumanize International, we believe that at minimum, the law should protect the right of every human being to live free from violence. Because elective abortion always kills a living human being, it should never be legal. We have a long way to go to creating a world without the violence of abortion, and we can't do it alone. We must work to bring an end to abortion in the culture and in the law, and, in solidarity, accompany parents experiencing unexpected or difficult pregnancies. We invite you to join us as we work to build a culture of peace and life. To learn about ways to get involved, visit rehumanizeintl.org. There, you can see if we have a chapter in your area so that you can get activated in the movement working for human rights for every human being. If we don't have a chapter in your area yet, you can also find information about forming one so that you can work to rehumanize your community. For updates, you can also follow at RehumanizeINTL on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Thanks for watching. Peace.